Grizzly. At Grizzly, we believe charging your electric vehicle should be simple, reliable, and affordable. That's why we design, engineer, and build our chargers in Canada, ensuring top-tier quality and performance. Powered by United Chargers, every Grizzly model is crafted in-house, built to withstand extreme conditions, and tested for reliability. Recognized by leading publications for its performance and value, Grizzly delivers both durability and intelligence with heavy-duty aluminum enclosures, premium output cables, and smart charging features like scheduling, usage tracking, and OCPP compatibility with multiple charging apps. Grizzly. Simple, reliable, affordable, built for every climate, every EV, everywhere you go. Visit grizzly.com to learn more.
Hello and welcome to the Batteries Included podcast. Happy Friday 4th of July 2025, episode 95. Happy Independence Day. On today's show, mobile DC charging on a cheap EV challenge, Tesla nearing completion of their LFP battery cell making facility, and the death of the $7,500 EV tax credit at the end of September. And, of course, much, much more. We're all in town today for the holidays. I'm your host, Martin Lee, from the EV News Daily podcast. And if you've been enjoying our summer series, EV News China, if you haven't, check out my podcast. Joining us today is the unimpeachable Mr. Tom Malogany, senior editor at Inside EVs and host of the YouTube channel State of Charge. We have Dominic Yoni, longtime EV journalist and host of the YouTube channel Drive Electric with Dominic. And joining us this week, Kyle Connor joins us from the majestic, practically palatial halls of somewhere remote, where he makes high voltage videos for a plethora of electric vehicle YouTube channels. And we will get into why a Nissan Leaf tried to kill him this week, if you're watching the YouTube version of the show. Before we jump into the news, here is a heads up for our Canadian viewers. Our sponsor, United Chargers, makers of the world-famous Grizzly line of home EV chargers, announcing a program that gives Canadian households a free charger. We recorded a short episode this past Tuesday on Canada Day with founder and CEO Gleb Nikiforov, and that's up on our channel right now for you to check out whenever you want to. After this one. The program isn't available in the US. At least not yet. Kyle, you have driven and shared with us your impressions of any number of EVs over the years that none of us will be able to afford in our dreams. But this week, you've turned the tables. Kyle, you're doing something different. You have just started to put out a series around the $5,000 Fizz. Now, we can't give out all the details yet. There is a video up, but you've got 3 cars purchased or improved for $5,000 or less, and you put them through a number of tests and racing them and all that kind of stuff. Tell us about the cars and what we can expect to see.
Yep, you're totally right. So we've done a lot of expensive cars. We've done some cheap cars too, but we thought, well, everyone on YouTube's doing a cheap car challenge. We should do an electric cheap car challenge. And so I set a budget for $5,000 maximum spend. That includes the car and all modifications. Not safety related though. So tires and brakes, spend the money on that because we got to be safe. But on the cars themselves, $5,000. And we had 3 teams and we have 3 cars. So we've been having a blast. We're in the middle of filming it right now. We'll be finished up tomorrow. And we've just been having so much fun.
One of the stories is why you are so battered and bruised. You've got injuries on your arms, your legs. We can see. How did the Nissan Leaf try and kill you this week?
Yeah, so as you'll see in the next clip, one of the 3 cars is a Nissan Leaf that we bought for a cheap car challenge. Now, that might seem like a bad idea, but I promise you it's not, because this is not a normal Leaf. This is a Leaf with 2 batteries in it. So I bought this car for $3,000 and we actually wired in a second Nissan Leaf battery. So that helps spread the thermal load across 2 batteries. And I was like, this could actually work. We'll get some good range. We might get some good charging. And it's been very interesting. Not only is it a normal Leaf, it's a stretch limo Leaf. So that's where we were able to fit the second battery in there. And because it's 4th of July, happy 4th of July, everyone. We're celebrating America with our Leaf. and we've painted it in this amazing American flag livery to celebrate this great country. So in general, the car's really cool, but it did try to kill me. Driving electric cars can be really dangerous, as you guys know. And I was trying to plug in my electric car, and I plugged it in and then tripped over the cable and fell on the ground. And yes, and not only did I fall on the ground, my hands got caught in the cable too. So I was face first on the ground. I got to say, I'm healing really quick and no major injuries other than some scrapes and bruises. So all is good. And, for all the years that I've been plugging in electric cars, it's about time something bad happened.
Good. I'm glad you're okay, and that your specs survived. Your glasses are okay.
Oh yeah, I think they took the brunt of the fall, and not even a major damage.
Amazing.
So when you hit the ground, you were out of your specs.
That's right.
Amazing.
Yep.
But let's hope the last injury you have for a long time with charging an EV. Hey, look, charging, that's really, really interesting. As part of the challenge, Out of Spec has borrowed in only the way that you can. DC fast charging from Spark Charge, that whole trailer that for our viewers that are watching it can see right now. You used a Rivian R1T to bring it down the 500 miles to the starting point, and then it was handed off to a Tesla Cybertruck, kindly provided by Tesla, because of course yours are sadly gone now, to bring it back and work as a support vehicle for the race. Now, Dom, you are there with Kyle. We alluded recently as to why you were going to be on location. You brought the truck unladen up to North Carolina. Kyle drove it down to Jacksonville. What can you guys tell us about the rig? We're interested.
The trailer, yeah. Well, that thing's freaking amazing. It's one, it's like really heavy. It's like 10,000 pounds, so 5 tons. It maxes out the capacity of the Rivian towing, but it handled not too badly going down. Of course, you had to stop. I think we got like a 0.9 miles per kilowatt hour. So cuts the range in more than half, which is not great. But yeah, it then unhooks really quickly, relatively quickly. And it's nice because we can, with the Rivian and the Cybertruck especially, you can use the suspension, the air suspension, to raise and lower it to get on the hitch or off the hitch, regardless either way, really, really, really quickly and efficiently. And it's just that part of it is just like amazing, just like the physical things, dual axle. So all those mechanical parts are great, but the electrical part, of course, is like the most interesting aspect of it. So this thing, how many kilowatt hours?
Yeah, it's roughly 300 kilowatt hours.
Yeah, 300 kilowatt hours. On the very back, there are the panels open up. So there's a hatch on the back that folds up and a hatch that folds down. So you have a little cover from the rain or elements or the sun.
Yeah, I should be able to show you that right here in this clip. If you look through, you can see there's 4 DC charging ports. Each of them is its own high-powered DC charger. So we can run 4 times 80 kilowatts out of this thing.
Wow, that's cool.
Well. Also, buy our merch.
Right. Yeah, this is the race. Just to go back to that real quick. So the race. There's 3 cars involved. I got the Spark EV, like I used to own, and it's a 2016, the Nissan Leaf, and then there's a BMW i3 as well. My point of that, so they all charge below the 80 kilowatts, no problem. But the Spark,
the Spark can't charge on the Spark Charge.
Right?
It's a real problem. So Tom knows this, I'm sure as well, but early GM stuff, they don't follow the proper DIN spec for CCS charging properly. So the Spark is out of spec, and it only works with some DC chargers, and it seems to be like 50-50 supported, because the charger has to be actually not following the standard in order to charge the Spark. And the Spark Charge trailer follows the standard and won't charge the Spark. So Dominic and the crew, Dominic and Alex, were driving our support truck for the race. So there was a road trip race, and then we're racing on track here in North Carolina and doing other series of challenges. They came up with a pretty ingenious way to recharge the Spark from the support truck. Maybe you can share how that all happened.
Well, so what you can do apparently is make a whole train out of this vehicle configuration on, let's say, like a quiet back road. So you have the truck at the very front, and a trailer. Then you can take it like a tow strap, tie it to the back of the trailer, tie it to the front of the spark. The sparks have a little eye outlet, so you can little cover it comes off. You get the little eye hook screws in, and you could tie the tow hook onto that. And then so you have this train going down the road, and then you can use the regenerative braking to charge. It was just sounds sketchy, right? But in practice, not bad. Like I'm not gonna. There's some interesting things happen there. I can't really give it away, but.
So how many miles per kilowatt hour does the Cybertruck get towing the trailer and charging the Spark? You said 0.9 just towing the trailer.
Actually,
What
the
was it?
Cybertruck,
What was it?
I think the Cybertruck's kind of close to the same.
the Cybertruck was over a mile per kilowatt hour towing the trailer. It was more efficient towing than the Rivian was because it pushes a little bit more air out of the way. I don't know what it was towing.
That's
but
crazy.
It could have been good. But you only towed for 7 miles or so.
Right, just enough to get them to. They needed to get to a
DC charger that worked.
that worked with the Spark, because the Spark is very finicky about where it gets its electrons from. Basically, right?
Yeah, I remember talking to people from, I don't want to name the networks, but 2 of the major DC fast charging networks years ago about this, and they're like, "Yeah, GM won't work with us. Our engineers, have contacted them, said, look, your vehicle doesn't work on our network. Let's figure this out." And GM's like, "Yeah, nah, it was a compliance car. We're not spending another penny on it." So that's all on GM.
We've been blaming Mary Barra for it the whole time.
Yeah, the networks tried to get it to work on their networks, and GM was just like, "Yeah, no, we're moving on." So
if you have a Spark EV, so the night before the whole road trip happened, we took the Spark up to some different chargers to see which ones it would charge off of, and because at some point we weren't sure it was even going to come along. Right, it was like it wouldn't work off the trailer, and the trailer's got 4 different DC outlets, but it's 4 slightly different protocols.
Yeah, so there's like ports 1 and 4 are a little bit more accepting of weird charging bugs than 2 and 3, and so we were trying the Spark on everything, and we were going to different chargers in the Jacksonville area, and nothing would work. Nothing.
Right, until we got up to Georgia, then we found ChargePoint.
Yeah,
ChargePoint works.
Yep.
So if you have a Spark EV and you need DC fast charging, look for the ChargePoint networks, or what was the other one?
Yeah, ChargePoint. So any ABB charger seems to work.
Right. Even Electrify America.
Electrify America's signets work, but I don't think BTC's.
Right.
And so it's very dependent on hardware manufacturer and less dependent on the actual operator of the chargers. Anyway, we figured it out. The Spark made it 500 miles. It didn't require a tow truck, but you're going to see that in the video, and it was really fun.
Yeah, and Urban is just asking, where is it Twizzy right now? It just actually drove behind us. I don't know if you can. Yeah.
Oh, it did? Okay. Yeah, it's here.
Someone just drove it behind us. So it's here, but it didn't come on the trip, which I don't know if is it road legal?
Well,
in the States,
it's a gray area. No, but no DC charging. So the rules for this race: $5,000 EVs needed to have DC fast charging. We're going on a 500-mile road trip and then racing them on track. So that's been the program this week. It's been honestly super fun. The Leaf limo is unbelievably comfortable and luxurious, and I'm so thrilled to have it.
Wow. And charging for the Leaf's been okay?
You have no idea. We're not even going to talk about it.
Okay.
But we can tell you we have a trick up our sleeve, which is we have a CCS to CHAdeMO adapter.
Yes.
Yeah, they're sketchy as well. So
yeah, you just wait and watch the video. All right.
All right. Okay. All right. Okay. Talking of watching the videos, you are halfway to 1 million viewers on a video that Renew channel made about the Model S, Kyle. Why do you think, I mean, obviously the Renew channel's been around for a little while, but you say that, everyone's doing, cheap car challenges, so you joined in. You're just being self-deprecating there. Why do you think people at the minute are really interested in things like, the maintenance and the Renew channel and the new battery in the Model S? It captures people's imagination though, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's all the stuff we've talked about over the years, which is when electric cars are new and under warranty, we're like, oh, what happens when they die? Do you put a new battery in it? Do you recycle the car? And the cars are just kind of now getting to the age in the fleet where they do require maintenance, a lot of them. And they do require those big decisions of, do you scrap the car and recycle the battery? Do you keep the car on the road and put a new battery in it? Do you perform a battery repair. And it's not just the battery, it's drive units, it's power electronics, it's HVAC and other things. And so the Out of Spec Renew channel is really focused on how do you keep these cars on the road longer? And if you can't, what do you do at that point? So we're going to get into some recycling stuff. But Alex, who's here with us this week on the East Coast, is making videos for the channel and had a great one where he put a new battery in his almost 500,000 mile Model S. And that worked out really well. The car didn't need a new battery. He just wanted to get more range.
And then what did he do with the old battery?
Don't know, actually.
Okay.
No clue. I haven't watched the video yet.
He's actually right here. Well, not right here.
He's somewhere around here.
He's around here. I wish he was. We could just ask him.
Yeah, we could ask him. But anyway, it's pretty cool. Check that out for sure.
Yeah, I think everybody is checking it out. It's doing really well. All right. So, and you're back in North Carolina. Is that your original location?
Yeah, so we're back sort of where Out of Spec started. We operate out of a vehicle testing facility in northern North Carolina, and it's a fantastic location for us. And so we've moved back in as of this week. So the Cheap Car Challenge is a bit of celebration of us Out of Spec moving back to the East Coast. Now, that's not to say we're out of Colorado. We still have our office there. Things are all still there. That will continue, but probably will continue less as we spend more time here in North Carolina. We'll actually play you the clip of the race that we shot yesterday. The video will go up sometime very soon, and you'll be able to see some of the track and how beautiful it is here. And just imagine some of the things we can do with the cars we have access to and the stuff we can come up with compared to when we were here 5 years ago when we were much, much smaller. So Dominic will pull up a clip of our $5 grand fizz instead of a 24-hour endurance race, like 24-hour of Le Mans or 24-hour of Nürburgring. We did 24 minutes of Le Maybe. So you can take a look here if we can pull it up on screen. Great.
There we go. That's on.
Yeah, so you'll see
Amazing.
us a running start, and essentially, those are the three cars. Really, really fun. And we'll leave that on in the background for you. Just a little teaser clip. I hope everyone is able to check out the video because it was really fun and a little sketchy out there, but that's what makes good content.
Absolutely, and it's where it all started. I got some memories of watching videos years ago. I think you pushing the cone around there at about midnight or something. And yeah, back there, that's great for anyone who's watched your channels for many, many years. We look forward to seeing some more content. Now, Tom, last week you shared with us the results of your Cadillac Escalade IQ 70 miles an hour range test, and it was good, 482.2, big number. But you did a second range test, or rather, you got your mate Pete Bremy to do a second range test, because this was an extreme one. And it was a scientific experiment, and it was a point that you were trying to make and illustrate that speed is very important in terms of when EVs start to go a bit quicker. So if you go from 70 to a constant 60, and you weren't advocating for us all to drive at 60, I'm getting the wrong end of the stick here, but if you were to drive at 60, the result isn't 482 miles. It's a lot more. How did it go?
Yeah, I mean, it was really, if you've seen some of my range test videos, I've done comparative range tests at 80 miles an hour. 70 miles an hour is the standard that we do. Kyle and I do our range tests at. Now, some other people have started to adopt that too. But Kyle and I try to do the same exact style of range test so we could use our data interchangeably. I know when he does a range test, he does everything exactly the same way I do, except at the very end, Kyle runs it till it stops. I can't do that. I don't have the infrastructure to do that. But everything else, I know his data is spot on. So I started doing them at 80 miles an hour just to show how much farther you can go at 70 miles an hour than 80. But it's difficult for me to maintain 80 miles an hour here in New Jersey. I have to do them overnight. There's no way I can do it during the day. Sometimes it's hard for me to maintain 70 miles an hour in this area. So I thought it would be fun to then do this one instead of 80 miles an hour, 10 miles an hour slower, which is what we did. And I did it the day after I did my 70 mile an hour. The next day, I gave Pete the keys to the Escalade on the same course, the same temperature. He got in the slow lane of the New Jersey Turnpike, set the cruise control to 60, actually 61 because it was 1 mile an hour off, and he went 607 miles. So, I mean, that just goes to show you how much of a difference it makes when if you just slow down. And I know everybody, people in this, chat room know this, but people that aren't used to electric vehicles and their driving range, they get range anxiety. If you're on a long road trip and you're worried about making it to wherever you're going, just get over to the slow lane, knock it down 10 miles an hour, and you'll be amazed at how much farther the car can go. I mean, 482 to 607, 125 miles farther. Now, if you're in a race, that's not your best policy. Your best policy would be to drive faster, particularly on the vehicles that can charge quicker. And the GM's vehicles charge pretty quickly, especially I shouldn't say GM's vehicles, the big battery vehicles, the ones with the 24 modules, like the Escalade, the Silverado, and the Sierra Denali. So they pull over 300 kilowatt up to over 50% state of charge. So if you're in an absolute race, or if you don't care that it's costing you more, drive faster, as long as you don't get a ticket and you're within the speed limit. But if you just want to get to your destination, you don't want to have to stop, or there's no charging and you're not in a rush, or you're cheap and you want to save some money, just knock it down a little. It's amazing how much farther vehicles can go. Now, every vehicle's going to be a little bit different. The vehicle's like a Taycan that can cheat the wind a little bit better and are more efficient at higher speed. That you have to get up a little bit higher for it to make that big of a difference. But with a big brick like the Escalade, look at the difference between 60 and 70, 125 miles. So at 70 miles an hour, I averaged 2.7 miles per kilowatt hour. 2.1, I'm sorry. At 60, I averaged 2.7. I didn't do an official range test, but I did get on the turnpike while I had the car and drove about 100 miles at 80 miles an hour just to see what it would be. And I was at between 1.6 and 1.7 mile per kilowatt hour. So let's say 1.65 mile per kilowatt hour at 80 miles an hour, 2.1 at 70, 2.7 at 60. So the difference between 60 and 80 is literally a mile per kilowatt hour. So you go an extra 225 miles in between 60 and 80 miles an hour. That's greater highway range than some EVs have total at 70 miles an hour. So it makes a big difference.
It depends if you're in a hurry to get where you're going to go. I find any of the modern ADAS systems are so good now. Not just adaptive cruise, but just all of them seem so good that I just set the cruise at a comfortable speed. And if I get somewhere 5 minutes early or 10 minutes late, generally I'm not doing the kind of miles that matter. So I'm happy going a little bit slower if if it avoids a stop, because often a stop could be pulling off a slip road or maybe an access road. And then, all the plugging in and stuff, which can be several minutes. And then if that means I'll just slow down and get home with just enough juice and I'll charge overnight and it's cheaper, then I'll do that. It's fine. But, fantastic.
Yeah. And I had a lot of comments, not a lot, but had some comments of people saying, oh, you're going to get run off the road and so forth. It really depends where you live and where you drive. Pete actually had to pass people to maintain 60 miles an hour. Not a lot, but he said like 5 or 6 times he actually had to get over to the middle lane and pass a car that was going slower than 60. So it really depends where you live. Now, if you're in middle America where the highways are wide open, there's very few cars and the speed limit's 85 miles an hour. That's a little different. It's a little bit harder to drive 60 miles an hour at that speed limit. But don't forget, here in New Jersey, the speed limits are 65 miles an hour. 65, that's the limit. And the low limit is 45. So driving 60 miles an hour in the slow lane, you are not getting run off the road, period. I know people comment that I live in New Jersey, you can't drive that. They're completely wrong. Even in the middle of the night when there's less traffic, you could drive in the slow lane at 60 miles an hour through most of the East Coast. I've been up and down the East Coast a lot. Will cars be passing you? Yes. Will it be unsafe? I don't believe it will be at all. You park yourself in the slow lane, go a little bit slower, and you'll get to where you're going. But you drive the way you want to drive.
Unsafe driving. If you want to see some slow driving, you got to watch our road trip race in these cheap EVs, because 60 miles an hour was about the top speed for some of us.
So, and you didn't get run off the road, did you, Kyle?
I mean, a couple times we had to go in the shoulder, let a truck go by. There were some situations, but it made for good content.
Right. In the truck, we were bringing them to the rear basically. So we also had to drive at, 45, like the minimum, whatever the minimum was,
State minimum.
state minimum was. We were at that, maybe below,
Some of the time, yeah.
some of the time. But we, but we were actually a large object on the road, so no one's going to run us over.
Yeah, and if they do, it's about just hit the brakes. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not that hard to not crash in the car in front of you.
Yeah. Well, we didn't really see a whole lot behind us, so
So you have no idea if they were about to crash into you.
right. So we didn't worry about anything, and it all turned out well. We could hear maybe some swearing as people went by us, but other than that,
Yeah, but the American flag Nissan Leaf, not a single person was mad at us for going slow.
that's right.
If
This
we were
is the
painted
key.
in any other livery, we would have been run off the road or shot. But because we're an American flag, people loved it.
Yeah, this is the key. Just paint everything in the flag, and you get away with stuff. In
Absolutely.
in the 4th of July week. Reminds me of a story. I was watching a video of one of the producers on Top Gear when they came over, and I think they went somewhere in the south and had some provocative comments sign written on their cars, and they said no, we actually did that for real, and the state trooper pulled us over and said, I can't protect you. You don't understand. If you've painted your car like this and you get shot, I can't stop that happening. And they were like, oh, Christ. We didn't know we'd got that. We were doing a British joke. And so, yeah, sign writing cars. It's contentious. But cool. Right. Let's move on. So this week, there's been a lot of news that EV owners and potential EV buyers will want to get up to speed on. I can't wait to hear the opinions of all of us, apart from me, who wants to hear from a Brit commenting on American politics. But the big bill that the Republican-controlled Congress has been talking about for months finally passed both houses. So, amongst many things, and I know Elon Musk has been very outspoken on many bits of this, not just the EV stuff and some of the spending, but it will cut the vehicle tax credit, the EV tax credit, which has been around in some form since 2009. So $7,500 off an EV and $4,000 off a used EV below $25,000 purchase price, and a number of other credits and incentives for manufacturers of electric vehicles and batteries to make vehicles on US soil, to make batteries in America, like the advanced manufacturing tax credit. So there's no way this doesn't slow down momentum in the very short term, at least. Possibly. I don't know. I'm no economist. Tom, let's start with you. What's your take on this news? Headline doesn't seem like it's good news. But let's have a quick few thoughts on this. Tom, what do you think?
So, we knew it was coming, guys. We knew when the administration change happened back in November, when we elected a new president, we knew this was an inevitability. I don't know. I know I knew it. I think most people, unless you were blind, knew it. President Trump campaigned on one of his things, saying he's going to end the EV tax rate. He's going to stop giving away taxpayer money to rich people that buy EVs. No surprise. So that will it slow down EV adoption? Sure, well, a little bit. The whole industry is transitioning to electric vehicles. We don't live in a vacuum. So to me, that it was going to happen. It's going to be a little painful short term, but eventually it's not going to change anything. But what bothers me, what upsets me, what I think is the most damning and damaging thing on this bill is the incentives for manufacturing battery plants in the US. That's the big thing here that I don't think, let's say, the general public is getting. Like general public, a lot of people feel like it's a win, and I understand that. Yeah, I don't want to, fund those people buying them, those rich people buying EVs. I can't afford a $20,000 Toyota, and I'm giving this guy $7,500 to buy a $100,000 Rivian. I get that. I understand why that it pisses people off. But the manufacturing is a huge problem here, and it kind of got snuck in. I remember when I was in college in the mid '80s, I was in an economics class. It was like international economics or something. I remember my professor saying, 10 years ago, we manufactured 90% of the clothing that we bought in the U.S. here in the U.S. 90%. We only imported 10%. It's like 85 in 1985-ish. And he goes, you know what? We're down to 75% now. We lost 15% of our domestic manufacturing. He goes, it's tremendous amount of jobs and money here in the U.S. And I just looked it up. This year, the U.S. is going to spend about $400 billion on clothing here in the U.S. Do you know what percentage of clothing we make in the U.S. now, or in this year that we'll buy?
10.
3.
Wow.
3%. So from 85, we went from let's say a few years earlier when he said 90%. And I remember him saying, if the government doesn't get involved, and I know people don't like the government getting involved, but if we don't do something to incentivize domestic manufacturing of clothing, we're going to lose the entire industry. We're going to lose millions and millions of jobs. Nobody got involved. Everybody loved going to Walmart and buying a t-shirt for $4. Why not? I think I bought this thing there for like $4 3 years ago. But we completely eviscerated the domestic clothing market because government didn't get involved and say, hey, wait a minute, we will lose all of these jobs. We'll lose everything if we don't. And that's what's going to happen to the automobile industry, folks. I believe this 100% that this could be the final death knell of the U.S. auto industry. Now, you won't see it this year. You won't see it next year. You're not going to see it for a little while. But if we didn't help the Fords and the GMs with domestic manufacturing of batteries, mineral supply, things like that, because the other countries are helping their industries. It's not a level playing field. And don't say we're going to tariff the hell out of them. That's just taxes on us. And then where does that tariff money go? I'd rather it just be collected in regular tax for everybody and then given to the right companies, the auto manufacturers, to build battery plants and things so we can be competitive in the coming decades. The tariffs have an undue tax on the people that can't really afford it, because the lower income people are paying that same tariff on a product as a wealthy person is. Whereas, with the people that are more economically stable to pay a little bit more to help the industry, that imbalance is happening. So I think that's the huge problem here right now, Martin. That bothers me the most. I wholeheartedly believe in my heart that is the death knell in U.S. domestic automobile manufacturing. We'll still be making cars in 2040, let's say 15 years from now, but General Motors and Ford will be niche players. They'll be like a Jaguar, like a JLR now. They'll make expensive SUVs, Escalade or something, the vehicle that maybe other manufacturers don't want. But that's what really is the problem here. Everybody's focusing on the $7,500 federal tax credit. That doesn't bother me that much. It's the money that is lost for domestic manufacturing and U.S. jobs. We're screwed. Period.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Dom, I know you watch this. You watch it really closely. What do you think?
Well, actually, I'm right where Tom is, actually. I've reduced my expectations. We've been expecting the $7,500 tax credit to go away, and I would have liked to have seen it go to maybe 2030. I think it was supposed to end in 2032, but I think really 2030 it should be fine by then as far as helping adoption and getting over that point where a gas car and an electric car is equal prices upfront. And when that happens, electrification does not need government funding for consumers. But if we ended a few years earlier, like we're doing, okay, I can take that. I mean, it's going to slow things down a bit, but it's not going to end electrification. We're going to keep seeing more and more new EVs on the road. And it was actually great, this little road trip coming up here. I've seen this. You just kind of see just more EVs on the road, just constantly. It's just been increasing over the last, especially 5 years. And yeah, it was really kind of interesting to just see how many, and from different manufacturers, EVs on the road now. So that's going to continue happening. It's not, it may slow down a little bit with this tax credit, or it may not. You never know what happens with the price of gas could explode at some point. There's a lot of tensions in the world today, and that can really affect the price of gasoline. So, I'm happy to concede. It's not up to me anyway, but it's not. I don't think it's going to kill the industry to see the $7,500 consumer incentive go away. But for businesses, and they've been, business need a lot of certainty, and a lot of runway for, what's coming down the road. And so they've been sort of counting on these manufacturer incentives. And, with those in place, they've put in a lot of money to build factories, battery factories, car plants. And with that going away, it kind of leaves them in the lurch a little bit, especially if things slow down, then they can't sell as fast. And so they're going to have to pull back on those investments. And I'm not sure, man. I'm afraid that we're going to lose a lot of the domestic battery manufacturing, especially that we were kind of, we were headed in that direction. That like the last administration had brought in some legislation to really help domesticate our battery supply. And I'm really worried that a lot of that is like going to, die in the crib basically, and then we're stuck importing from other countries, which is not really what we want, right? Because it's a matter of nationals. I wouldn't say national security. Well, yeah, in a sense, it's kind of like a national security, because what happens if, for whatever reason, no one wants to sell batteries, and we have no battery manufacturing ourselves. It's like oil. Do we have, we produce lots of oil now, but like I say, in the 70s, of course, there was a big problems with getting oil to the U.S. and prices, went up, and there were long lines at the gas stations. So I'm just worried the equivalent of that with the batteries can happen here, and I'm not sure if with everything going to electric, I feel it just puts the businesses in a bad spot, and it's kind of uncharted waters where we're headed to right now. But I think Kyle's probably got his own right? He's a little more conservative than I am, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, whatever I say isn't going to change the outcome.
Well, no, but
yeah, I don't know. I'm happy that $7,500 tax credit's gone away. Totally agree with Tom on manufacturing incentives. I'm not an expert at all in that. I mean, if you want to talk about BMW i3 versus Nissan Leaf limo, that's my area right there. On incentivizing large multi-billion-dollar contracts for really difficult manufacturing tasks. Honestly, it's not. I don't have any place to comment.
Yeah, I've commented plenty of times over the years and been told off from people saying we don't want Brits commenting on American politics. So this weekend I'm going to make a whole separate podcast just with my opinion about this, just to piss people off. So make sure any of my US listeners, please listen to this one, because there's a lot to dig into. And I thought what I'd do is I thought I would take a slightly contrarian view, because I can, because I'm thousands of miles away, and take the opinion of, well, Elon Musk has said over the years, I don't want subsidies. And I know people say, yeah, but your whole business, like SpaceX and stuff, is built on subsidies and contracts. But he said over the years, just give us a level playing field. All right, well, let's take it all away and see where you end up. If you take away subsidies, businesses have to stand on their own 2 feet. Battery costs are not where they were in 2009, when they were $800, $900 per kilowatt hour. They're now 50, 60 in China, and a bit more depending at cell level or pack level. EVs are already cheaper in some cases on monthly deals than their like-for-like equivalent. I think I saw some research saying 75% of people that bought an EV would have bought it anyway without the IRA. And so we were just kind of, as Tom says, helping rich people to buy cars anyway. They're still going to buy the EV. Let's see what the market can really do, what its own on its own. And also, things are forged in fire, aren't they? It's why things are invented for the space race, and it's why things are invented in wartime. Some of our biggest developments over the years have happened through 2 world wars and trying to get to the moon. And so actually, a lot of good stuff happens through adversity. And, let's see what the industry can innovate, bring prices down, innovate new technologies, and see where it goes. And so I've seen over the years people accuse manufacturers of taking some of those subsidies and the manufacturers capturing some of that value, not all getting passed on when there's either, cash on the herd. We had £4,000, £3,000, and they got rid of it years ago here. And well, the UK is now Europe's biggest EV market. Now we're now bigger than Germany in terms of the EV market in the UK. We got nothing. And so I'm going to take a contrarian view, and then everyone can complain and tell me I'm an idiot this weekend. But I'm not sure it's entirely bad.
Okay, I think it's valuable for people outside of the country to comment, and for us to listen to other people, from a outside perspective, have to say about looking in. Maybe some people don't have all the details, or can look at it from the same way that we do. But I think it's valuable for us to hear from other people. Yeah.
Well, we'll see if I get away with it. But let's talk a little bit about batteries that go in EVs. Now, during Tesla's...
Back down to the track. Sorry.
Okay,
we'll see you guys later on.
We're
going to go set up for some more challenges. We're going to see which car can get through the Moose test the fastest, but we've got to measure out the Moose test.
Okay.
So real important stuff, not anything about your factory BS. Okay.
Right, let's talk about batteries. Take care. Let's talk about batteries in EVs and LFP cells being made by Tesla domestically. This week, Tesla released a 45-second video on X with the caption, "Nearing completion of our first LFP cell manufacturing facility in North America." The video shows a facility with much of its manufacturing equipment already installed. Reports say that manufacturing equipment is from CATL, and for those that know, uses a wet coating. It is set to have a modest capacity of 10 gigawatt hours to start. The cells will be used in energy storage products like Tesla Powerwalls and Megapacks, but of course, could they end up in vehicles? I don't know. It's a small line, 10 gigawatt hours production capacity, but LFP cells have been performing admirably over the years, and in fact, many people prefer them compared to other chemistries, as long as the cars do what we want them to do and charge quick enough and are safe and things like that. It gives Tesla a bit of flexibility. Tom, Tesla have done this for a long time. I'm not sure Tesla get all the credit. They get a lot of credit for, they've had raw materials turn up for the last, 10, 15 years at Nevada. And they've been doing this sometimes on the quiet, sometimes making more noise about it at certain times. But now Tesla getting into domestic LFP pack making. This is what you were talking about. This is domestic manufacturing. We need to support this and celebrate it.
Yeah. We absolutely do, and we need more of it. Unfortunately, now I think that's going to dry up. I think part of the reason why you're seeing some LFP plants come online here as the U.S. was the fact that there were incentives for these companies to build out these domestic manufacturing, provide thousands and thousands of jobs, and also domestic security. That we didn't have to source things from overseas as much as we currently do. It's a long-term play. It wasn't something that we were supposed to get return on tomorrow. It was something that was supposed to help secure our domestic automobile manufacturing for decades to come. And unfortunately, I think that's going to dry up now, Mark. I think you're not going to. There's a lot of credit. I'm sure they took advantage. I don't have any records showing that they took money from the manufacturing incentives that they were, but I'm sure they did. Why wouldn't they? They've used incentives in the past for infrastructure and for to build their company. Look, make no mistake about it. Tesla wouldn't be here if the U.S. had no incentives for clean energy, alternative fuel vehicles. There would be no Tesla. There would be no Rivian. There'd be no Lucid. What other company was about to come out in the next year or so that we'll never know about because there wasn't some sort of incentives to help foster their initial run up to profitability. So Tesla deserves a ton of credit. They've seen to make so many right moves. They're so vertically integrated. They saw that they had to do this years ago, that they had to make their own batteries, that they couldn't just source them from somebody else. Thus their partnership with Panasonic early on, and now building this plant to make LFP battery packs. I think the other guys, let's say the GMs and the Fords, only recently realized we have to do that if we want to compete in the coming decades. We have to. We can't just go and buy our batteries from Cadle or from, whomever, Samsung. We have to be in control of this. Such an integral part of your vehicle to outsource. It's not like a power seat switch that you outsource. With electric vehicles, the batteries are the vehicle. And Tesla always knew that, and the other big guys are just starting to realize that. Now they're not going to be able to benefit from any sort of help. So it's gonna hurt them.
Well, the Korean giant LG inaugurated America's first LFP battery plant in Michigan. The facility is a $1.4 billion expansion of their existing battery factory that already makes lithium-ion batteries for GM and Honda, Hyundai, of course, as well. It will make batteries for energy storage systems there. So LFP is typically less energy dense than typical NMC and associated chemistries, but much lower manufacturing costs, avoiding the use of no cobalt, lower fire risk, great for energy storage. LFP is about 80% of the BEV market in China right now. So LFP in the US for energy storage is great, but lots to do. Ford as well need to open up their Blue Oval Battery Park in Marshall, Michigan, and licensing LFP technology from CATL. Again, American factory, American workers, American investment, and so much pushback on it as well, which is, it is frustrating. I find it frustrating, Dom, because from an outsider's perspective, like, America had it all lined up to have a really strong domestic battery industry until, this week. And even then, with the Ford deal, licensing CATL, there were so many people who just didn't like it because it had the word China in it. Like, oh, it's China technology? No, ban it. And they're really fighting hard against Ford. And that's by no means a done deal. The whole thing might not happen. China wasn't happy because it took China IP outside their shores and over to America. So again, no one seemed happy with that deal. But we just seemed at the beginning of a really rich period for American strength in battery production. And I think I've said to you before, Dom, as well, from an outsider's perspective, I think it was a massive failure from the last administration. As much as I think there was a lot of good work done, what a massive failure in communication, because there wasn't $7,500 of free money to buy an EV. It was $7,500 if the battery materials were from the right place, if the car was made on US soil. It was an American first policy, and yet somehow the other side hijacked that and turned it against them. So I think the Democrats need to go back and have a long period of reflection of how they really messed that up, because that was an America first, proper blue-collar worker industrial policy that was well thought through and was here for, should have been here for 10, 15 years. But I don't know. Do you think those LFP factories that were going up, Dom, will ever happen? I think Ford have got some real challenges ahead of them.
Yeah. Well, I've got to say, props to Tesla on this one, because they mentioned this in their first quarter earnings, that they're doing stuff to onshore LFP. So I feel like Tesla's made a lot of missteps recently with their product planning and just maybe putting so much into Cybertruck, and then, they're watching their sales kind of evaporate. So a lot of, not to get too deep in that, but just, a lot of missteps. But an LFP plant, and then bringing up price. So they haven't had to deal with all the stuff, the blowback that Ford has had to deal with. They just went ahead and did the thing and didn't really talk about it. And boom, they have an LFP plant, almost ready to go. And right now it's going to be for energy storage things. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see those, cells from that plant in cars. It's probably take a couple of years. I think they were saying it's going to be, or reports have said it's going to take a year or so to kind of ramp up to full production, and that's only 10 megawatt hours, and that's a relatively small amount of 10 megawatt hours isn't a whole lot of production. They really need to get up to like the 40, and that should scale up too, especially if they can improve the cells as they go along. So they've got the old CATL equipment going on. But I think if they can upgrade as they go, increase the energy density, because that's where LFP kind of falls down a bit. But they are steadily making progress on that in China, and so I don't doubt that we could do similar here and increase the density of the LFP. But anyway, just to say, after all other things going on, that I'm kind of really happy to see this LFP plan, and surprised. Oh, good on you! Look at that. Yeah, something to look forward to. And I'm kind of, I have confidence that Ford is going to go through with this. I'm not too worried about. They did a media tour recently, and it's not the buildings aren't finished yet by any stretch, but work is going on, and they've scaled back their plans somewhat. So I think it's all going to be doable, and Ford's LFP plan is LFP to go in cars. So they may be actually the first ones to put LFP packs, domestically manufactured LFP cells, in cars. So good on them. And the rest, like we were talking about, LG Energy, which with whom General Motors has partnered with on different projects, and they sell to other people as well. Theirs is also energy storage, not so much in cars, but again, LG and the other Korean battery manufacturers, they're working hard to improve that technology, and I can see them getting LFP cells in cars in the U.S. I'm just not sure exactly what's going to go on with the plants that they have planned. They have big plans to make LFP plants I think we talked about that last week. So I'm not sure how this bill is going to affect that, slow it down, kill it. Hopefully it won't kill those plans. That's be a huge loss for everybody, because they've already sunk a lot of money into those. It's all, everything seems to be very much in flux.
That's a good way of putting it. Right, we've got a couple more stories we'll get to today. We may finish a little earlier than usual today. Enjoy the holidays and get back to the track. Firstly, Tom, as a Ford F-150 Lightning owner, and you've followed Ford very closely over the years. I'd love to get your thoughts, Tom, on the CEO, Jim Farley, once again taking time out of his day to praise the competition in China. At the recent Aspen Ideas Summit, he described his visits to China as humbling. On multiple trips over the last year, he's looked at the various Chinese products. He said that they've surpassed Western vehicle makers in digital technology integrated into cars, pointing out firms like Huawei and Xiaomi include advanced features like easy smartphone connectivity, AI assistance, payment methods built into the car, facial recognition, stuff like that. And he noted the additional competitive challenges from China's EV industry. Now, of course, China has had and continues to receive significant government subsidies that affect production, cut costs, keep quality very high. Jim Farley's taken senior Ford managers to China directly many times to have a look at the superior models that he talks about. Now, Ford is developing an affordable $30,000 electric vehicle, which Jim Farley calls the Model T of EVs. The company's also partnering with CATL, as we've just mentioned. Now, Jim Farley argued that US automakers must humbly acknowledge their need for Chinese innovation. That's not really on message, is it, Tom? The message from the US right now is aggression, and we don't need the Chinese, and all that kind of stuff. Jim Farley's not really on message, is he, with the current US policy from at least the White House? At least you've talked about Ford and GM facing a really uncertain future, and once again, quite a bold move for a US carmaker CEO to say that you need to be humble in front of the Chinese because the technology is that good. He's done this a few times now, hasn't he? I wonder whether it sort of motivates the troops or not who work at Ford, whether they want to raise their game or whether they think, well, why is the boss praising the competition? What's your take when he does stuff like this?
Well, I think he's genuinely surprised and shocked, when he goes and he sees how quickly they're advancing. The U.S. automakers, they've been keeping an eye on Chinese makers for a while, and they have progressed at an incredible pace. but that pace is even ramping up over the last year or two. They went from, 10 or 12 years ago, the cars were basically junk. There were no high quality Chinese vehicles 10 years ago, 5, 6 years ago, saying these things are pretty damn good. I went over, I think the first time I went over was 2018, 18 or 19, and drove Neos and Xiaopeng's XPeng vehicles. And they shocked me because they were nearly on par with a Volkswagen or a quality vehicle, maybe not a Mercedes or BMW, whatever. But over the course since then, now they've gotten to the point where they're top notch. They're some of the best built vehicles you can get with, and the tech is amazing. You walk up to the vehicle, facial recognition, it knows it's you. You get in the car, it sets the seat to the way you like the seat without doing anything. You don't have to have a key fob on you. It knows, your digital life as far as what radio stations you like to listen to, what podcasts you like to listen to. We don't have anything like that. And I think Jim is kind of it's realizing, and the fact that he went back and brought other people, because unless you go experience it, until you get in the car, see what it has to offer, drive it, feel what it's like, it's hard to do that. So I understand why even a lot of my friends, I talk to my friends about Chinese cars, and them, they're never, I don't care. I'll never buy a Chinese car or whatever, this or that. But when you experience it, it is humbling. When you drive the car. I mean, I went over to Amsterdam with XPeng and drove a bunch of their vehicles across the Netherlands. And I remember saying to myself, these are great cars. They're not just good cars. They're great cars with great range. And do the legacy car companies know this? Do they realize what their competition is, and how quickly they improve their vehicles is just wild. We talk about 3-year life cycles here to do mid-cycle refreshes. For crying out loud, they're doing refreshes in 3 months. It's wild how quickly they improve their vehicles. So if we're not on top of our game, this goes back to what we talked about earlier, we're going to lose everything. And we could compete. I don't think people say, oh, it's over, they've already won. If we did the right thing, we could compete. I just this latest setback, I think, with the bill that just got passed, I think it's the death knell. I think we had a chance to salvage a lot, but that's it. It's like I said, it's not going to happen in a day. It's not going to happen in a year. It's not going to happen in 5 years. Towards the end of the next decade, we're going to be feeling the effects of this, and it's going to be brutal. And it'll just be another industry that we lost. And I don't know when we're going to wake up, but it's unfortunate. And since we're talking about Ford, I do want to mention something, Martin. So 2 days ago was my 3-year anniversary with my Lightning. Remember, I got the call on the podcast when my Lightning was in stock. When my salesman called up and said it's here, so I left and picked it up. It's been 3 years, so I'm going to do a 3-year review video. I'm also going to do a range test now and compare it to the range test I did when I first got the vehicle, and then also charge it to 100% and see how many kilowatt hour it takes in compared to when I bought it when it was new. We'll talk about degradation. I'll talk about wear and tear items and things like that. So there's a lot to talk about with regards to my 3-year Lightning anniversary. I have 27,000 miles on it, which doesn't sound like a lot, right, in 3 years, but I have 4 EVs and I drive all of them, so to have 27,000 miles on just one of the EVs, it's my primary driver. But I drive the Equinox, I drive the Rivian, I drive the Bolt every now and then, although my dad's taken that now. I haven't driven it much lately. And plus, I'm always getting loaners. So I probably drive 30,000 miles a year total on my vehicles. But the Lightning's getting about 12,000 of that because I'm at a little more than 36,000 after 3 years. GM's going to flip when they get the Escalade back. I put 2,500 miles on it in 9 days with the two range tests, and then I also drove it up to the Niagara Falls, which is why I couldn't come on the show last week. And I'm making a video out of that too about the new GM because GM partnered with ChargePoint and they installed chargers there. And I'm doing a video on General Motors, the fact that they're you would think with being a founding member of IANA, they're just giving IANA money and saying, here, that's our investment infrastructure, but it's not. They've got partnership with ChargePoint where they're installing 500 DC fast chargers across the country. The partnerships with EVgo, that's 2,100 DC fast chargers in addition to what they're doing with IANA. So I thought it would be worthwhile to give GM some props and say, look, we all know what Tesla's doing. Tesla's, the big dog with infrastructure, but General Motors is number 2 here in the US as far as investment. So, and I thought they should get some credit. So I'm making a video talking about General Motors and what they're doing with DC fast charging.
Cool. General Motors has doubled their EV sales this quarter too, right? From the quarter year previous, which is pretty good. I mean, it's not Tesla numbers yet. They're still but it's coming up, right?
They're good. Yeah. Well, they make good vehicles, no doubt. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens now, though, Dom, with the tax credit card. Sure. A lot of those EVs that they're selling are those $300 a month Equinox.
Right.
And how's Equinox going to do at $400 a month? Let's see.
Right. I've heard there's like a lot of really, really great lease deals on Equinox right now too, even more than it was like before. We had some really cheap deals, and I think it kind of went up again. But then I saw a headline or a story this year, just last week, that there were some amazing deals, like $100 kind of month
crazy. Listen, guys, you got 2.5 months. Before the tax credit goes away. If anybody's thinking about picking up an inexpensive car, take a look at the Equinox. The freaking lease deals right now are insane. I mean, like Dom said, you might be able to get one for $1,000 down and $99 a month. That's how cheap they are, with a low mileage lease. But still, that's a free car, basically. Right. So they have ridiculous deals right now.
And take advantage. If you see one, do it, because Rivian ended all of their lease, as far as I know, there's really good lease offers on June 30th, pending clarification, because I've been following this closely, and even I'm confused. There's been conflicting reports that the lease bit, so-called lease loophole, because leases are commercial agreements, and that bit of the federal tax credit, they were going to backdate to the day they announced it, which was sometime mid-June. And whether that got signed off in the final bill, I don't know. I'll go and research that after the podcast. I should know that. But if that's the case, then as long as you sign an agreement, then if someone is expecting, if a lease company or a finance house are then going to go and then claim that money back, and the government say, no, we're backdating that to mid-June, so you're on your own, then they have to take the hit. So if you see a deal and that's what you're paying and make sure you're in the clear, then go and do it. Because I think that's all, they may try and backdate that to when they first tabled it, which was around mid-June. So I've seen those deals coming off the table pretty quickly. So go do it.
And of course, there's also, not everyone can afford a brand new car or, can't, or in a position to lease exactly. So there's always the used market. And that has a $4,000 tax incentive for vehicles below $25,000, and which will also be going away by the end of September. So you have, that's also, that option is also coming off the table pretty soon. So if you're going to make your move, start looking.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I think I'll do is, if I do make a podcast this weekend, a special podcast all about this, one of the things I was looking at this morning was the leasing market, which I think 3 years ago, I haven't got the numbers in front of me now, it was something like 15% of EVs were leased 3 years ago in the United States. Now, it's something like 65% of EVs are leased in the US. So that will probably come down with the end of the lease loophole, unless people have got a real taste for this new way of getting cars on their driveway. But what it does mean, and one of the reasons why, all of the federal tax credit going away, there's no sugarcoating it. It's bad news if you have been on the fence and thinking about buying an EV, maybe this year, possibly. Do it quickly, as Tom says. That money going away is a bad thing in the short term for the individual and all the manufacturing stuff. But what I think is going to temper some of that market disappointment is that this year alone, 125,000 EVs are coming off lease in the US. Double that to 330,000 EVs are coming off lease in 2026. And almost 700,000 EVs are going to come off lease in 2027. And that is going to flood the used car market with EVs. And market forces at work should mean that EVs remain, even without that $4,000 for used tax credit, that the used EV market's about to go through a fascinating 3 years in the US. And again, that'll be one of my points that I make, which is this seems like terrible news, and I think it is. But hold your horses a little bit. Like, there are going to be some factors at play here that people haven't quite thought through. So, yes, it's bad news, but picking up a used EV, a 2-3-year-old EV will be a new EV to you. And can be in great condition, low mileage. And if there's a ton of them flooding the market, all coming off lease, that's got to be great for the buyers.
Right. Supply demand, right?
Yeah, but I also think the price is going to go up a little bit, Martin, because now they don't have the federal tax credit. So people aren't going to be, not as many people can afford new EVs. So I think that's going to put pressure on the used EV market. I think we might actually see numbers start to creep up because of that. People that want the EVs can't go for the new one, and they're looking for a used one. So let's see. It's going to be interesting to see, because we'll have more, so that should push prices down. Maybe less new ones are going to be sold. That might push prices up. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that.
I feel like with the used $4,000 credit going away, I think that's artificially pushed a lot of cars below $25,000, like just to sort of move the metal, go for volume, pushing it below $25,000 so people can take advantage of the $4,000 tax credit. With that going away, I think it might be less, motivated to lower those prices on those ones that are really worth a bit more than that. That they let them sit on the lot, the extra couple of weeks and get the full value of the can out of them.
Yeah. And before, not to jump off the subject, but I know we're probably going to be taking off pretty soon. I didn't want to forget. So you guys know I do the Recharge Rescue series on State of Charge, where I fix somebody's problem. I identified somebody else that had actually had a small fire in their garage because of their charging setup. So in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be traveling to their house. I already have a local electrician going there now to assess the damage, and then I'll be flying to their house to fix them up. And our sponsor, United Chargers, has agreed to donate a new Grizzly Ultimate 48, and we're gonna fix their garage, give them a whole new circuit because there was a fire and it just wasn't melting. A circuit from their panel to the charger, hardwire the Ultimate 48, and that should come up in the next week or two.
That's brilliant. I love that series. This is brilliant. It's so good. It just warms your heart, and we need more stuff like that in the world. Especially your last one. I think it was the single mum last time.
Yeah.
Oh man, that was an amazing.
Yeah, she was so
thing.
Thankful. It was good. It felt good doing that one.
We'll send everyone on their way this week with a story from Stanford Battery Center. They tested 92 different commercial cells designed for EV use over a 2-year period. They simulated 47 different types of discharge cycle, from just babying the throttle to blasting everywhere, max power, full send. What? Like, where's Kyle gone? We need Kyle back for this final segment. He's measuring the moose at the moment. Dynamically cycled batteries can last 38% longer than those babied only at a slow highway speed, over 200,000 miles, I think. So, basically, this is, I think, free reign to give the accelerator a good stab once in a while and enjoy that performance of your EV. So then if you've got your partner in the car and they get thrown back in their seat and they've got that motion sickness, you can say, it's science. I'm just doing it for science and making the battery last longer. So hard driving makes your battery more efficient and last longer. So we've got evidence now.
Right. I think we've seen some of that with a fast charge, battery degradation with fast charging. It's not as bad as we thought in our minds. We can't. A lot of people thought, we can't supercharge too often or fast charge too often because it'll hurt the battery. But looking at the real world numbers, we've seen a few reports where it's not that big a deal. And maybe, and apparently it's good to give a good fast charge sometimes or full send sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And just remember, if your buddy in your car is not a fan of electric vehicles, if they've told you they'll never get one, they don't like EVs, wait until they're just about ready to sip their coffee when you punch it. That always gets them.
That always gets them. That always gets them. That's brilliant. Well, look, we'll finish early because it's holidays and we've all got stuff to go and do. I haven't, but you guys have. Thank you very much for joining us. If you did join us this week for the live show on YouTube and streaming on Twitch and on Facebook, LinkedIn, then thank you very much for the comments as well. We really appreciate it. We love to read all your comments. Might not show them all on screen, but we do read all of them. And you can, if you're watching this on Catch Up or listening on Catch Up, stay in touch over the next 7 days by leaving a comment on the YouTube channel. Probably the best place to find us. Just search Batteries Included Podcast. Best place for comments or questions, whatever you are up to. So a nice stat that something like 3 million electric vehicles will travel in the United States more than 50 miles from their place of residence over the holiday period. That's a lot. It's a lot of charging. So enjoy yourselves out there this weekend. Enjoy your fast charging, whatever you're doing, and I hope you have fun in your EVs. Give us a thumbs up on the YouTube video. It really helps us spread the word about EVs. If you're not already subscribed, and I'm sure you are, then you know what to do. Thank you very much for joining, and we'll see you all again very soon. Live from the track. Hey, Dom, say ciao.
Ciao.